Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Like I said, heading into, and Ken Doubles here, this is usually the other way around, but a long-time friend. Heck, you were in my wedding.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you believe that? 1986?
Well, I called Al Karpic part of the West Lafayette High School Mafia. When I was doing the sports here in the late 70s, he and his high school buddies would call me late night on Friday after the late sportscast and grill me about Cubs trivia.
Yeah,
So,
well, you have a big event coming up here in your other job, among many, of course, is to be here tonight. If you're in the Lafayette area, obviously, a little baseball. It's Ken, Clayton, and the Cubs, but tell us about the show tonight at the Long Center.
we are going to have a little fun with the mighty Wurlitzer pipe organ that I've been playing there since 1982. But we decided to mix music and sports, and when I found out that Clayton Richard not only grew up here, but comes back here during the off-season, I called his dad, the sheriff, and said,
Yeah.
Gene, could we do something? And how can we mix sports with music and also a little outreach? And because they're so into the Boys and Girls Clubs,
Yes.
we're doing a benefit concert, joint fundraiser for the pipe organ and for the Boys and Girls Clubs. Clayton Richard will be there to make an appearance. The show is going to be great. A Bugs Bunny cartoon first, baseball Bugs when he plays against the Gas House Gorillas, and then a few highlights of Clayton pitching. He'll come out and say hi. We'll talk for a second. Then we're going to do a silent movie, short comedy with Laurel and Hardy to show what the organ did in those days. And then Clayton will have about a 4.5, 5-minute highlights package of the Cubs, a little more serious, and then he'll have a real message for the kids. So in about an hour, we'll have a lot of fun, and then an autograph session afterwards. Kids 16 and under, whether you're associated with the Boys and Girls Clubs or not, kids 16 and under get in for nothing.
Yeah.
The parents can get in for $15, or Cubs fans can get in for $15, and know that I flew up on my own nickel, and I'm not getting paid. Clayton's been just terrific. He's gathered all kinds of Cubs swag to give away to the kids when they come in. So it's going to be a great fun night.
Yeah, Clayton,
7 o'clock.
Yeah, Clayton Richard is, even though he's not a Purdue wishes he was a Purdue guy. Of course, Joe Tiller tried to recruit him when Clayton went to Michigan, but a great, great community guy. He's been very involved even here with the National Football Foundation and Jim Vrujink. He has been very supportive of so many different events, and you can't find a better guy than Clayton Richard. I mean,
I was amazed to meet him for the first time back in November, and he has been absolutely ingratiating and open to any suggestions. And then what I haven't done is snap any selfies.
Yeah.
We're going to take some selfies tonight. I've got 5 older brothers, and we're all crazy Cubs fans.
Yeah.
And so they will be very interested to see the pictures.
And nobody watches the Cubs closer than you, and New York Mets series notwithstanding, it's going to be an interesting year next year. There's a lot of talent, plus who they brought in. This is going to be something special for the Cubs.
Every day is going to be special. And you can go to chicagonow.com, click on the Cubs there, and you can see the digital countdown to pitchers and catchers report. And it's to the day, to the hour, to the minute, to the second as to when pitchers and catchers report, because there is, I'm old enough to go back to 1969 and that disappointment, and yet we knew that DeRocher-led, Ron Santo, Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Fergie Jenkins-led team was terrific, but I haven't sensed a degree of excitement since just before Bartman.
Yeah. About minutes before, actually.
Or better yet, that's unfair. Just before the stupid shortstop let the double play ball go right through his legs, and then the whole thing went to you-know-what in the handbasket.
There was a lot of excitement, though, last year, obviously even in the first part of the playoffs, and just to be able to see that the way that it is phenomenal.
Is Joe Madden the most amazing thing in baseball? I mean, I just... and I love how he breaks the rules. Joel Quenneville in hockey with the Blackhawks, they don't practice. They haven't had but maybe 3 practices all year. Why? It's an 82-game grind with the worst travel, and what does Joe Madden say? Batting practice is overrated. I don't want to see you at the ballpark till 5 o'clock, because rest is so important, keeping your mind and your body fresh. Oh, I think he's fantastic.
All right, now Ken's former life, and he's still obviously a great sports fan, but has been involved. Started in TV 1977.
Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, go ahead. By all means, this is the internet. You got all day.
Yeah, we got all day. As I was sitting listening to you and Brian wrap up, I was thinking about my first assignment at Purdue as the new sportscaster at Channel 18, 1977 in the fall. And it was an interview with Alex Agassi,
Yeah.
who promptly spit tobacco juice on my shoes. Welcome to the big time,
Yeah.
kid. So I go back a little ways, and certainly, even though I'm a Butler University grad, I have great allegiances to Purdue and thoroughly enjoyed all of my associations, whether it was doing the play-by-play with Bob Ford for Gene Katie's basketball teams in the early 90s, or my work at Channel 18, or year after year after year when I keep coming back like a headache.
Every June, what do you say, this is going to be the 35th year of your
This will be June 34.
the 34th year of the annual concert and as well. And of course, tonight at the Long Center, 7 p.m. For those that are interested in town, it's a great event. Clayton Richard, Ken Devil will talk baseball, but a lot more going on than just that. And I wanted to ask you about, because one of Gene Katie's better teams that did not win the Big Ten championship, but the 89-90 season when you were doing play-by-play television, a very interesting season, some very interesting characters. One of those guys was Matt Painter. What were your recollections of Matt when Matt was that would have been his that would have been his freshman season, actually, but in terms of what you recall about number 12 back in those days.
Well, one, he was an awfully good player,
Yeah.
and he was an awfully good shooter. It was fun to see him, be able to shoot the basketball and play offensively. He was a lot of fun, easy to talk to,
Yeah.
a little perhaps more mature for being a freshman. But you could find out through him and also in interacting with Gene Katie and the staff that he was a basketball junkie and a sports junkie and just lived it, breathed it, and it made him interesting to be around.
A very interesting team that year. Tony Jones, obviously at the point, a very tough-minded guy that's now flying airplanes, well documented among Purdue circles. But Steven Scheffler, a very interesting character and still an interesting guy. Of course, Steven was first team All Big Ten and also was a co-MVP of the league that year, along with a guy named Steve Smith from Michigan State. But Steve Scheffler was always an interesting guy to be around.
Oh, what's funny about Steve Scheffler is when I was doing the sports in the late 70s, he would come to the Purdue basketball camp.
Yeah.
So I remember him as a giggly little 12, 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And then who'd ever thunk it?
Yeah.
He grows up to be this monster of a man
Yeah.
with a great deal of talent and determination to make himself better. Talk about another one that was great fun to watch develop as a basketball player and a great kid.
Yeah, and absolutely, and a pocket philosopher. You could ask him about anything. Very well read guy. Suffered from dyslexia. It was an interesting story. How much he was able to, really a self-made person, and one of the great interviews that we've been able to have over the years, just kind of guy that has a myriad of things to talk about in terms of usually not just basketball. He's well into all kinds of politics on down the line. Great guy from that standpoint. You look at this the culture of Purdue sports, and we've seen it over the years. We've heard you were around when football wasn't good, and then you saw a little glimpse of time where football got to be decent. Certainly in the Mark Herman era, it cycles, doesn't it? I mean, in terms of that, it's hard sometimes for younger folks to see that, but we've seen good and we've seen bad, and football's in a very rough spot right now. But you have to hope that it's going to turn around here soon.
Well, it's good, one step at a time. Being a Cubs fan, one becomes the eternal optimist. There is always next year. It's always a brighter day tomorrow. And Scarlett O'Hara isn't the only one who ascribes to that philosophy. And yet, it's going to take an awful lot of hard work. It's going to take finding some diamonds in the rough that are going to be able to step up and play. And it's a tough time right now. But again, it is all cyclical. Even with the Cubs' 108 years, there have been some really near misses and some very talented teams. What's interesting now is it really looks as if they have the whole package: management, the hierarchy, the scouting structure. That they made the changes they made this offseason without giving up one talented prospect is remarkable. And so these things can happen, and it's going to take one little step at a time to right the ship.
all the little changes that were made to the aesthetic changes to Wrigley Field. You and I have been going up to games, I think, together since the late '70s as well. This is it's a new ballpark, but I think they did a pretty good job with that whole thing for the most part. I mean, it still is a first class and kind of still in the theme of Wrigley Field the way it should be.
You know, I can remember the first time I was covering a Cubs story when I was at Channel 6 in Indianapolis, the first time I ever got to step onto the field.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is still true, and that is you walk through those lower box seating areas and step out, or even if you don't get to go on the field, you walk into that part of the ballpark and you look, and it is so incredibly green with that ivy and that beautiful grass and that wonderful, you know, sunshine and everything. It's no wonder players fall in love with it, despite the decrepit locker facilities that are now finally going to get better. It is an amazing atmosphere, and I'll guarantee you, when they're winning, there isn't anything like it in baseball. That ballpark's unbelievable.
It'll be unbelievable if it ever does happen. And we always laughed about it. Would we live long enough to see this happen? It could be.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
The 25-man roster that wins the 4th game of the World Series, do they all get in the Hall of Fame? I think they all have to go in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, it's they'll at least have statues made for them.
They'll run out of real estate for statues.
And that's we did want to answer one question that I was going to lay a comment on that I'll answer here on any comments on Stacy's report. She just reported on the site about Jafar Williams, one of Purdue's offensive assistant coaches, leaving to head for Rutgers. Hard to spin this as good news for signed and potential recruits. Jafar has been known as a pretty good recruiter and kind of an outgoing guy. You know, it's interesting because Daryl Hazel's had to replace. This will be assistant coach number 5 by the time it's done. Not shocking when you've been 6-30 over the last 3 years, and I think that's part of it. Jafar Williams, and it's not shocking too that guys like that get opportunities to go other places. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Purdue does not have a lot of receivers in this class. Running backs in this class. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that how much impact it does have on recruiting and who Jafar's gone after. I'm sure that Brian and Stacy will be looking at that from that potential too, as we look at Gold and Black and look at recruiting as we get to the National Signing Day on February 3rd. Is this college sports thing? You've had a long time career in professional hockey and broadcasting that, but and now live in Atlanta, which is gets to be the hotbed of the Southeast Conference. So you're in Georgia Tech town, so to speak. But this is it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, just the fan following in college football. Alabama wins a national championship. It's off the chain from even where it used to be.
Oh well, and things like this part of the reason. What the internet has done to explode the information and make it available everywhere to everybody is just amazing. And generally speaking, I would say it's a good thing. Now, except for some of the bloggers who are idiots.
Not on our side.
I'm not talking about your side of the coin. You guys know what you're doing and what you're talking about. But there are some independents out there that leave you scratching your head. But whatever.
Yeah, that is what it is. And sometimes they want.
By golly, freedom of speech. I will defend their right to be stupid anytime they want.
That's right. He's not Donald Trump, I promise you. So I promise you on that front, because what he just said made good sense. So you look at this in your professional life, and you've gone from sports broadcasting, and you're obviously involved in fundraising with the National Theater Organ Society, right? And the acronym is
ATOS.
Yes, and around the country doing that. Do you see a trend? I mean, because of all this modern everything that we do, what we're doing today, and yet what you're doing is really is a throwback. How do the two blend? Can there be a net positive for people having that desire to kind of take a step back and look at things the way they were in a very still technologically driven? Your show is not like it has technology that's part of it, but it certainly is not. It certainly is a look back at the way things used to be.
What's interesting about that is that although the theater organ is an instrument of the 1920s, there are many of you that go back to Indianapolis and remember the Paramount Music Palace and that
Yeah.
great big pizza parlor with that
Right.
great big Wurlitzer pipe organ in it. And so where are we with the instrument today? It's still nostalgia based, but what we're more and more trying to do, we know that the concert audience that wants to hear 2 hours of this is dwindling, literally dying away. But we also know, for example, at the Atlanta Fox, where I now
Yeah.
live and where I play, when the Broadway show comes to town, right now Book of Mormon is on.
Yeah.
And so the pipe organ plays from 7:15 to about 7:45 before the 8 o'clock curtain. And it's an unbelievable instrument, and audiences love what they call Mighty Mo. It is a molar organ as opposed to a Wurlitzer organ. And it was a major part of saving that theater, just as our Wurlitzer here in Lafayette, Indiana, was a major part of saving the Mars Theater, now the Long Center. And so you marry this nostalgia with these modern people who are coming, who are in the midst of this completely renovated 1929 movie palace in Atlanta with this ancient organ, but it's playing music that they're familiar with, that they enjoy hearing. And so in little doses, when it's presented right, we know audiences love the theater organ. And so part of my job now is going to be fundraising to get our endowment up to eventually in the $15 to $20 million range, so that we can go theater to theater to theater to theater and say, we'll help you play your pipe organ.
Yeah, yeah.
You need a young player, and we've got young players.
Yeah, yeah.
Players, not the problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's audience members. We'll help you pay that guy. So now what we need to tell them is endow the bench just like the orchestra endows the conductor's chair or the first chair violin, and we'll kick in. And so 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, when our members, and me included, are long gone, the instruments will still be there, and our job is to make sure they're still heard by an audience that will appreciate them.
All about sustainability. Well, Ken, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to tonight's show. Again, 7 o'clock, Long Center, if you're in the Lafayette area. Clayton, Ken, and the Cubs, a lot going on. And would you say $15 walk up
Yep.
if children or kids under 16 free? A great event to support the Boys and Girls Club at Lafayette.
You bet. And moms and dads, so it's $30, and you bring your kids. That's a cheap night out for some fun entertainment. And if you're a Cubs fan, how do you not want to come to Long Center tonight and get a chance to hear, meet, chat with, get an autograph from Clayton Richard, who's just great. Can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, we'll look forward to hearing more about that down the road. Okay, I want to thank Chris and Gordon and Allie, everybody at WLFI for all their help putting on today's show. We'll be back next week. Stacey Clarity will be your host as we will have Gold and Black Live each Friday now until the Final Four, with maybe 1 week of exception in March. But Gene Cady will be joining us in a couple of weeks too, as he's back for the three-peat reunion in Mackey Arena. That'll be fun as well. So again, thanks to our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, of course XXX, and John Basham and the good folks at Basham Rental. We appreciate you as well. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on Gold and Black Live.